Hi, I'm Joe Evans with Barba Coffee. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about brewing, specifically on bulk brewers today. You know, Barba, if you don't know much about us, we're what's called a specialty grade coffee roaster. We believe in sourcing the absolute highest, best quality coffee we can possibly get, roasting it till it's at its absolute perfect kind of most beautiful form, and then handing it off to you guys and hoping you guys can do a good job of brewing it. There's not a whole lot you need to know when you're using a bulk brewer to get it right. The big things are, you know, your water volume, your water temperature, and your dose on the coffee and the grind density. As far as the water volume and the temperature, if you're maintaining your equipment and you're having it serviced regularly, it's going to work just great for you. Your job is to make sure you're putting the right amount of coffee grounds into that, and that the grounds are the right size, and that you're taking good care to dump those pots when they're stale and old. I'm going to go over a couple quick measurements for you. Just kind of there's a math equation, kind of stupid, complicated math equation to get to the right amount of coffee to weigh out to put into your coffee brewer to get it correct. That equation is you take your desired yield in ounces, multiply it by 0.055. What that really translates to is if you're brewing 1 liter of coffee, if you have a 1 liter air pot, you're looking at about 1.8 ounces of coffee to weigh out. 1.5 liters, you're at about 2.8 ounces. 2 liters, you're at 3.7 ounces. 2.5 liters, you're at 4.5 to 4.6 ounces. 3 liter, that's the most common size, you're 5.5 ounces. And then 1 gallon is going to be about 7 ounces weighed out. There's a little flexibility in there. If you think your coffee needs to taste a little stronger, you can dose it a little bit, ½ ounce up. If you want it a little bit milder, you can reduce the dose by 1/4 to ½ ounce. But those are pretty solid numbers. The more important thing is the granule size. I'm assuming you've got good water going into the coffee brewer. I'm assuming your brewer's working great. So I'm going to weigh out a little bit of coffee. I'm going to grind it. I'm going to give you kind of a good sense of what that granule size should look like. If you're struggling, if you're not sure the coffee's tasting right, if you're not sure your grind is correct, give me a call, give somebody else at Barba a call a local equipment tech. We work very much in what's called the gold cup standard as far as our dosing and our granule size goes. We want to make this coffee, when we roast this coffee, we want it to taste good when it's brewed on a regular brewer in a normal restaurant or coffee shop environment. So I'm going to weigh out, we've got 1 gallon brewers here. I'm going to weigh out 7 ounces of coffee. All right. If you have an auto dosing grinder, just periodically check that the timer is dosing the correct amount. You know, grind it out, weigh the coffee, and make sure it's correct. You can adjust that timer if it's not spitting out the correct amount. It's also not too tough to make the coffee a little bit coarser, a little bit finer if you need to. So you want your grind, we're talking about a medium grind here. Different grinders have that at a different setting. A lot of bulk grinders, they have a line, it just says for auto drip. That's a great spot. But it should be a good kind of coarse sandy. If you can kind of mat it into piles, it's probably too fine. If it's really chunky, it's too coarse. That chunky grind is really good for French press, cold brew. But this kind of right in the middle is perfect. Once again, if you're struggling getting there, feel free to give me a call, shoot a photograph, text it to me. Call anybody else within Barba. If we're not close by, give a local equipment tech a call. They should be able to get this right down to the right size for you. If you're not getting the right size, if your coffee's too fine, you're going to get a coffee that's really muddy and over extracted and bitter. If your coffee's ground a little bit too coarse, it's going to be a little bit watery. You're going to taste a little bit of paper in there, things like that, because you're not getting the dissolved solids kind of pushing through. So the other thing that happens a lot in bulk brewers is you'll throw your coffee in here in the basket. You may have a metal basket, plastic basket, and then you brew the coffee, you come back, and there are coffee grounds in the water, and the filter is folded down. So it's really important when you tuck that in there, you make sure there are no edges sticking up over the edge that'll fold over when you stick it into the brewer. You also want to make sure that everything's kind of tucked tight to the side, and shake the coffee grounds out so you have a nice even layer in the basket there. Yeah, and that's about it. You know, that's you throw this in, you hit the brew button, and you walk away, and hopefully, if you're doing everything right, it'll taste good. One thing I really encourage you to do is not grind the coffee too far in advance. Try and grind the coffee to order whenever possible. If you are going to grind your coffee in advance, don't do it a day in advance. Do it just for one day's service. Make sure you grind all the coffee at the same time. That way it's evenly rested throughout the day. But if you're really in a busy environment, you can pre-weigh. Here at La Barba, we take some of these Cambros. We pre-weigh the coffee. We throw them in with a lid on. So we have it all dosed, ready to go. We just dump that in the grinder, grind to order, get going. That saves you a lot of time when it's really fast if you're using a pour-through grinder. Once again, if you're using an auto-dosing grinder, you're going to be just fine. Just make sure you're checking at least twice a month, making sure that that's dosing the correct amount, that the grind hasn't gone out of adjustment.